everyone. Happy Friday evening from a very stormy UK, and welcome to Wrestling Royalty for what hopefully and promises to be a bit of a different kind of stream tonight. We're going to try something we haven't really done before, as we always try and do on the show. You can see we've got Sam eagerly ready and waiting to go. We're going to find out how Sam's doing in just one short intro. So as I said, welcome to Wrestling Royalty, and tonight we are going to be trying to book our own version of WrestleMania 40, which is roughly 6 months away. I think it's actually slightly less than 6 months now, and it will be emanating from Philadelphia. But before we get into that side of things, how are you doing, Sam? How has your week been?
All right. I'm coming to the realization that this is like the Ricky Gervais show, but I'm your Carl Pilkington. I'm the one who you ask the questions to and poke with the stick. To see my entertaining responses while you get all the glory. So I'm joking. Of course.
I would have had you down as more of a Stephen Merchant.
See, I'll take that. I'll take that. He's certainly the smart one, isn't he? Merchant. Although Gervais is the mastermind, but I think Pilkington is the one who always gives me the lols on those. But yeah, my week's been all right. Lots of games, lots of reviews and stuff like that. I've blinked and this week's been over, really. I'm just catching up on all the ridiculous amount of wrestling I've got to watch before I go to Coventry next week to watch Impact. I mean, I don't know what's going on in terms of press. I am in the press pit, I know that much. But I think it's just going to be a case, though, of just turn up and watch the show, and which is great, because that means I hope they're not watching, but that means I can get a bit drunk. So hooray. But other than that, really good.
Sometimes those are the best kind of wrestling, where you just turn up and just enjoy what's presented rather than having too much prior knowledge. But obviously it helps when you've got like a vested interest and been hyped up. But if it's just good wrestling and they tell a good story in the ring, then sometimes that's the best way. So I'm sure you'll have a great time either way. But yeah, good to hear you've got Impact coming up. And speaking of Impact, you had a big chat or a big guest that you managed to interview this week, didn't you? And a certain Mr. Will Ospreay.
It was only, to be fair, all transparency, it was a junket. So I only got to speak to him.
You still
No, I'm just saying, like the Cultaholic were there, What Culture were there, Wrestle Talk, everybody who's anyone in this game was there. So I was just a very little fish in a big pond, but it was still nice to, via Zoom, to look Will Ospreay in the eye, ask him a question, and get a smile and get a nice response for him. And just to plug that on WrestleSphere, because that's where we were doing it, I will be writing that up and turning that into a little bit of a feature, because Will did say some interesting stuff. I'll also clip it as well, so you see me and Will having a chat. But yeah, like Will Ospreay's a big star. He's represented 3 out of the big 4 wrestling companies in the world now in the UK. So I thought, let's ask him about that, because what seems amazing about Ospreay at the moment is he seems to be our big UK star and our connecting tissue between anything that isn't WWE and to do with UK wrestling. And his missus even works for WWE, so he's got a finger in that pie as well. So he's our guy right now, Ospreay. He's our boy. And
who's his missus?
What's she called? She's called Blair Davenport in NXT.
They're not together anymore.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're not been together.
I didn't know that. There you go. I'm behind. It's a good job I didn't flip and say anything about that. Oh, who's he with now then?
I don't know, but I know they're not together anymore, because I thought the same thing and then realised quite quickly that they'd moved on from each other. So,
I didn't know that. Oh, fair enough. I thought they were Love's young dream, but there we go.
I thought I'd missed some big news that there was some romance within the wrestling of star-crossed lovers between New Japan.
No, that's just me being down. I'm not going to lie, I actually take pride in getting that wrong, because it means I don't pay attention to the private lives of wrestlers. I'm all professional. So there you go.
That's a good way to look at it, to be fair. But yeah, it's a great time for wrestling. And I will say, Sam wasn't having a shot at me. I was invited to the Will Ospreay thing. I unfortunately had prior arrangements where on my other channel, Rollercoaster Running, I was interviewing a podcast with two lovely American gentlemen on there, which will be coming out this weekend as well. So I've been busy on the running front, as well as trying to keep the wrestling royalty side of things going as well, because I have a holiday or a vacation coming up. So this will be the last stream for about 3 weeks or so. So we thought we'd do a big event and try something a little bit different. So we will crack on. Basically, there's a lot of chat at the moment of what might be the main event of WrestleMania next year. We've got certain pieces and certain theories and things like that floating around. So what we thought we'd do is, rather than just have a whole discussion about what might be the main event of WrestleMania, let's try and book our versions of WrestleMania 40 that will be coming from I believe it's Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia. So thank you very much for joining us. We're going to try something that we haven't done so far, which is I'm going to try and share a screen so you can keep up to track, or keep track of what we're actually saying. You might only be able to hear us rather than see us, which is, so some might argue, is actually a good thing.
No, don't be daft. I put fake tan on and everything for this. No, oh yeah, just to clarify, about a minute ago, yeah, when I said anyone who's anyone, like if Andy was representing WrestleSphere or Rush on Rock or Wrestling Royalty, he'd still be one of the guys in the industry. So yeah, that wasn't a dig at Andy or any other platform. It was certainly just saying, if with these WrestleSphere things, you're just as likely to go as Dom is or I am. So it's we do it in rotation, don't we?
Very true. So
right.
What I would like is for you guys, as we're doing this, let us know what you would book. Let us know why you'd book it, etc. Have a chat along within the comments. We'd love to hear from you. What we're going to do is I'm going to throw up on the screen now. It's going to be like a spreadsheet, and we're just going to go through our match card. Do understand, obviously, at the moment, WrestleMania is 2 nights. I don't think that's ever going to change. I think now it's this big thing they've had this change to, and they very much enjoy it. I think it's a bit of a cash cow for them for having 2 nights. And it also gets a lot more talent on the card over the weekend and makes it a massive event. I think it's been very successful for them. So fully aware that could take an absorbent amount of time. So we will try and go through this fairly quickly. And from what I understand, Sam's card has a lot of sort of interlocking things going on, and so we'll let Sam explain his card. We'll kind of write it down, we'll get it down, and then we'll move on, and you'll be able to see it as we go along. So let me share the screen. It's very rudimentary. Probably in the future when I'm doing this, I'll have some way of doing it on Canva or something, I'd imagine. But for now, let's stick with the good old sheets for Max. So Sam, kick us off. Do you want to start with like how have you gone about it? Because I gave Sam an instruction just to kind of create a card for WrestleMania. So I'm intrigued myself. How have you gone about it?
Right, so I've done it in kind of like descending order of like kind of what I kind of felt was not necessarily important. So it got to the end, and I was like, all right, hang on, what else would be on this? Okay, so I suppose it's in no particular order, and I haven't separated it by 2 nights because I have no idea what they do there.
Yeah.
Now, some of these are wholly realistic, and some of these are fantasy booking on my part, but there is an off chance. So I won't spend too long explaining each one. I'll blitz through it. So, right. I turned my own light off. Let's fix that. There we go. Right. There, so, first of all, I think it's a shoe-in Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes, the big rematch for the WWE Undisputed Universal Heavyweight Championship. It's a mouthful. Now, I am a bit unsure about this one, but the 2 enormous stars, so I've gone with it. Rhea Ripley versus Becky Lynch for whatever the hell women's title they've got. I'm so confused by the women's titles. All I know is it's a world championship. Rhea Ripley currently holds it. I think she'll hold it all the way till Mania. I think her versus Becky Lynch would be awesome. So there you go. That's that one. For the other women's match, I've got Jade Cargill versus Bianca Belair versus Charlotte Flair, because of course she's going to be involved in one of them.
Right, okay.
That isn't a dig at Charlotte, bless her. It's just the way these things go. Let me know when you're ready. I'll move on to the third one.
Yeah.
So my third one, now this might shock a couple of people, make a few ooh, ahs, but this is Finn Balor versus Damian Priest for the United States Championship. which Priest holds.
Right. Okay.
I could tell you who I think is going over in these later as well, if need be. But so my next one is Gunther versus LA Knight for the Intercontinental Championship.
Mm.
And it's very important in this one to point out, before we move on, that Gunther retains here, and it's very important that he do.
Oh, okay. Like that.
Yeah. My next one is Drew. Now, there's a lot of singles matches here. That's where my card might fall down. But Drew McIntyre versus Seth Rollins in a last man standing match. So this is a grudge match. Ain't no titles involved. This is two men beating the piss out of each other.
Okay, I'm intrigued to see where Seth's title's gone.
I can tell you.
Since the last man standing match.
Yeah, in the Samverse here, what's happened is Rollins has lost his title. Him and McIntyre have fought for it a few times. Judgment Day have interfered a bunch of times. Priest has eventually cashed in and won it, but he screwed over Balor in doing so and orchestrated Balor to be kicked out of the Judgment Day along with what's the other fella called? The other Irish fella, Jordan Devlin. JD McDonough has actually struck a bargain with. So Finn has turned babyface by this point and is now trying to take down Judgment Day. So that's what's happened with Seth. That's what's happened with Drew, and this is what's going on in my head canon. So the next match, because I think this is where it's going, is Street Profits as overwhelming babyfaces. Oh no, sorry, Alpha Academy as overwhelming babyfaces versus the incredibly villainous Street Profits for one set of the tag team titles. Let's say it's Raw.
Okay, so you think they've been split by then?
Well, word on the street is they're either being fully unified or split up. So I'm going to go with split up in this case.
Yeah.
Next match, Sami Zayn and main event Jey Uso versus Solo Sikoa and Jimmy Uso for the other set of SmackDown belts. The other set of belts. This time the SmackDown ones. Now I've gone with this. Quick explanation. I've gone with this because I did like the idea of Jey versus Jimmy at WrestleMania, but I think they're doing that sooner because of what happened on Raw this week. I'm fairly confident they're either going to do that at Crown Jewel or they're going to spin the wheels until Survivor Series. Maybe do them two in a War Games match opposite each other, but a singles match will have to happen eventually between the two. Maybe even Royal Rumble, but I think it's happening before Mania. I think there's a lot of ground to cover before Mania. Now, this next one is a little bit out there, and I wouldn't bet my car on it, but especially because Taylor, Bo Dallas himself has said suggested the news is he might not be returning, more than likely. But I have fantasy booked Uncle Howdy persona, Bo Dallas and his Uncle Howdy persona versus Bobby Lashley doing the match that he and Bray were going to do last year at Mania but didn't. This also gives Lashley something to do while the Street Profits are off doing their thing. And this whole thing could be structured as a WrestleMania tribute to Bray Wyatt with Uncle Howdy going after the people who might have wronged or called out his brother. You know what I mean? Like some kind of dark Avenger picking them off one by one. So that's, again, it's I'm not tied to that, but I think that'd be great fun. Okay, next one. There's a few left because it's a Mania card, so there's about 16 of them. So the next one is Nick Aldis versus Kevin Owens. And I'll briefly explain, very briefly. I think that's where this whole thing is going. I think KO is best when he's pushing against an authority figure. I think Nick Aldis will become more and more tyrannical as time goes on. And I think Aldis is secretly here to wrestle. I think this whole GM thing is only temporary. I think he's eventually going to be a roster member. Okay. So let me know when you're ready.
Yeah, go for it.
Next one is big fun. So this is Pat McAfee and John Cena versus Austin Theory and Grayson Waller, because I think it just writes itself. So this is just a crowd pleaser where I think because Theory beat Cena last year, I think the baby faces need to go over here. So I'm just going to throw that out there.
That's what they call it. Is it A-Town Down Under? I think is what they're going.
Yeah, which is cracking, which is really good. And like they are two big future stars, but I like the idea of them turning on each other here, or something like that. I don't know. It's just an idea. Next match: Rey Mysterio versus Dominic Mysterio. Hair versus mask, and let's also be honest, the mask also means career. If Rey loses here, which he should, he ends his career. But Dom turns babyface, inherits the mask, realizes the gravity of what he's done. Judgment Day, it's on its ass by this point anyway, due to what's going on with Finn and Priest. Rhea Ripley's also about to lose her title, or to Becky Lynch potentially, and so I think it's time for Dom to inherit his dad's legacy, and they've got 6 months to build to a feud between the two that becomes an emotional roller coaster where Dominic starts seeing the light, but has to go through with this. Okay, next, this is a bit of a kind of what they did last year, a bit of a placeholder, a women's exhibition tag match. So I haven't put any teams in there. This could be teams from wherever, just a bunch of female superstars who are on the card but haven't been booked in this yet can be in that.
Okay.
Okay. And I've got the same.
I'm not sure what to name that as though.
Well, I've just got women's exhibition tag match. That's all I've got for now. And the people in it aren't currently booked on this card, which there's a ton of people to choose from.
Right.
But I just think that might well be one of the matches, like it was last year. And I've kind of done the same thing for the men's, but I've made this a singles match so they can get more people on the card. And this is going to be a ladder match. And this is for both matches, by the way, both exhibition matches. The women's tag and the men's single ladder match are both for number one contenderships. The women for the tag team belts, the men's for a number one contendership for the World Heavyweight Championship. Not the Cody Roman one, but the big gold belt.
Right.
Next, I was going to book Logan Paul against Brock Lesnar, but I don't know if that works. So I've gone with Logan Paul versus Carmelo Hayes, who's been called up after Takeover. Not take. Oh, you know what I mean. Stand and Deliver.
Logan Paul versus Carmelo Hayes.
I think you could get magic out of those two guys. And the next one, now this is a big ass exhibition match, which would everybody would enjoy watching. It would only last a few minutes, but who the hell cares? Brock Lesnar versus Bron Breakker, which could be on a Mania card any day of the week. You know, that's just like that has to happen one day. And Breakker goes over here, annihilating the Beast and leaving him in a crumpled heap like he left Cody in the year before.
Nice.
Almost a year to the day. Again, it'd be great if we could have the Andre the Giant Battle Royals on there, the men and the women's, but I haven't really included them because they don't tend to do them on Mania anymore. They tend to do them on the TV shows. So,
true.
So I think I'm up to 16 there. Tell me if I'm right or wrong. That's all.
So you got Becky Lynch versus Rhea Ripley, Jade Cargill versus Bianca Belair versus Charlotte. You got Finn Balor versus Damian Priest. Gunther versus LA Knight, Drew McIntyre versus Seth Rollins in the last man standing match. You got Street Profits versus Alpha Academy. You got Sami Zayn and Jey Uso versus Jimmy Uso and Solo Sikoa. Uncle Howdy versus Bobby Lashley. Nick Aldis versus Kevin Owens. Pat McAfee and John Cena versus A-Town Down Under. Rey Mysterio versus Dominic Mysterio in the Hair versus Mask match. Women's exhibition tag match for number one contender. Men's ladder match for the World Heavyweight number one contender. Logan Paul versus Carmelo Hayes, Brock Lesnar versus Bron Breakker, and presumably the curtain drop will be Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes for all of the marbles.
Yeah, and I'll very, very, very quickly just go tell you who goes over, and then we'll move on. I'll be very, very quick. Right, so Cody goes over in the main event. Becky Lynch, Jade Cargill, Damian Priest. Gunther beats LA Knight because I want that story to continue all the way till SummerSlam. And if Cody's beating Reigns, we can't have both historic title reigns end there. We need one of them to keep going. And there needs to be some heel victories. This will make Gunther look even more powerful. And if LA Knight can then take it off him at SummerSlam, we've built 2 stars out of that feud, they're already stars, but this will cement both of them as legends.
Yeah.
I want Rollins to beat McIntyre here, and the crowd can sing his song. I want Street Profits to kill Alpha Academy, not properly, but because we need Street Profits to look insanely dangerous here. Sammy and Jay beat Solo and Jimmy and finally managed to get through to them. And all 4 men bury the hatchet and become a united front. There's only one man now they need to convince to come to the light, and that's Roman. Uncle Howdy beats Lashley, and there's a tribute to Bray. KO beats Nick Aldis, as a overcoming adversity like Stone Cold overcoming Vince McMahon. McAfee and Cena beat Theory and Waller. Dom beats Ray and retires his dad. Women's exhibition match. I don't know who's ever's over the most. Maybe Asuka. Men's exhibition ladder match. Perhaps Ricochet. Give him a crack at the big gold belt. Logan Paul beats Carmelo Hayes and crows about it on social media. And Bron Breakker annihilates Brock Lesnar, making the Beast question himself for the first time ever. There you go.
Nice. So, 16. Was that 16 matches, isn't it?
Yes, I went with 16. I think they did one less than that last year, but I'm all for adding another in there. So, but yeah.
Yeah, and let's face it, they kind of threw in those last-minute Miz matches on this year's one.
I thought about booking something like that with Miz, but I thought, no, I'll leave that because I'm very aware Miz isn't on that card and should be because he's the Miz, and he's a big part of it. But I don't know where the hell to put him in that lineup. So maybe he's in the ladder match because he's good in those. So maybe he's in that ladder match.
Cool. So I will say I might as well just copy and paste this because I think exactly the same. I think Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes part 2 is gonna come round at WrestleMania 40, and it will be the one that finishes the weekend. And this year, I think they will give us what we were all expecting from this year.
That's so fun.
I mean, to be quite honest, like I'm not, as I've said a few times, I'm not even mad about the result this year. I think it's probably was the best thing for Cody. And we haven't really seen much of Roman. He's kind of been and gone like a couple of times since then, and that speaks volumes as to how that belt's being used at the moment. But certainly, I think Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes is a lock. However, this is where I'm going to slightly go away from things, and I think Roman is actually pulling double duty this year. And I think on night 1 we get Roman Reigns versus The Rock. The reason why I think this might be happening is because it has been heavily teased outside of WWE in terms of The Rock sort of spoke about it, and it seems to be building. We've had The Rock back on WWE programming, but I also think it's a necessity because I think this is how you kind of build a bit of plausible deniability that Roman Reigns has maybe wrote a check that he can't his ass can't cash, and he is a little bit tired from having 2 matches over the weekend, so it builds into that whole thing of like he's not untouchable, but in his head he thinks, but this is the weekend it all comes crumbling down. He not only loses his title to Cody Rhodes, but the night before he loses his sort of head of the table persona because The Rock goes one-on-one with him. But that kind of mantle slips. Whether The Rock wins or not, I think is irrelevant. I think he just kind of gives him a match enough to make it kind of slip, and you see Roman's kind of whole world crumble before him. Personally, I think that's the way it's probably going to go for that one.
It's certainly a possibility, but I feel like because I nearly wrote that about 12 times, and the thing that stopped me from doing it, the only thing that stopped me from doing it was the worry that if Roman is tied from a match with the Great One the night before, does it bury Cody when he wins? Or because he didn't do it like he did it to an already tired big dog, and already beaten and bruised. But then again, Roman could use that after he's lost the title to be like, yeah, but you didn't get me at my best. You want me at my best? SummerSlam, bitch. You know, like they could do that.
I was thinking is that it gives Roman an out in terms of explaining why he lost.
Yeah, to counter my counter, you know.
Yeah, and even then there are ways of making it harder for Cody on the night. You know, you could still maybe have Solo hanging around and doing a bit of bidding, and just when you think he's managed to help him again, he kicks out and manages to kind of like overcome the odds. So there are ways of doing it, or you potentially, I haven't got this down, but you potentially make Cody have to have a second match as well.
Yes,
on the night before. So there are ways around it, but that will be potentially. I wish I wrote that down now because I quite like.
You can have it, but write it down, add it. Who cares? It's your list. Do what you want.
I'll add it in. Cody Rhodes versus
Solo. The question is, who's the? Oh yeah, versus Solo. Yeah, no, that'd work.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen a match with them before, and they were very. It was very good. Shame it was just a TV match. So I think a pay-per-view match between them two would be cracking.
Yeah, because I think
really good for Solo's career.
Cody dealt him as Solo's first loss, didn't he, as well?
I think he did. Yeah, I could be wrong, but I think he did.
Yeah, well, at least on main roster because he lost quite a few times. Let's face it. NXT. Women's side of things. Before we kind of move on, I'm going to go with Rhea Ripley versus Bianca Belair because I think this was the match that I personally wanted to see this year until they went in a different direction, and I'm quite glad that we did because I think Rhea Ripley versus Charlotte was arguably one of the best women's matches of all time. Very, very good. So I'm not mad at that we did again. Like there's a lot of things that happened this year that in retrospect you're like, actually that was fantastic booking in the end.
Yeah.
Which actually
even the Roman Reigns thing in the end was definitely the right decision.
Oh, I can't spell. So I think that leaves us getting Becky Lynch versus Jade Cargill, and the reason why I think that match in particular will happen is more so because Becky is very good at pulling great matches out of people, and I think if you're going to showcase Jade on the main roster on like the biggest stage, I think you give her a match against Becky, who would be a great dance partner for her, and really kind of like show off what she's really good at. And they can have a great sort of back and forward match and really hopefully split the crowd on who they're backing. By then, you might see Jade settle down in terms of her persona, her character. Is she a heel? Is she a face? So she's got 6 months to kind of settle into that, and Becky can play off of it. The awkward thing is Becky's so much better as a face because I think the crowd has wanted to cheer for her. So maybe we just see a very sort of I don't know, like obnoxiously like talented Jade Cargill, and that's the route that they go down. But again, could be a bit of a shot in the dark, that one, because they teased Jade being on NXT this week.
Yes,
so they did, that's that she doesn't actually kind of come up to the main roster by then, or maybe she goes in the Rumble or something. Who knows? We'll see.
They could. Sorry to jump in at the end. They could do what they're doing with Becky Lynch and Lyra Valkyria at the moment. They could have it where it's face versus face, but the friendliness has now turned to sniping, and both of them are. It's a little bit like ooh when they're both talking to each other now. So like neither of them are being the heel, but Lynch is now getting a little bit cocky. Like, all right, kid, I said you were good, but stay in your lane, yeah. So they could do it that way. That might be one way of doing it.
Very possibly. So the last women's one-on-one match I've gone for is Io Sky versus Bayley for Io's belt. I think she's going to keep it through for a while. I think they will drag this out until WrestleMania, and I'm not mad at that. I quite like it. Is Io Sky spelled with an E on the end of Sky, or is it just SKY?
I haven't got a bloody clue. I don't know. I should know. But
I think there'll also be a spot within there for Dakota, depending on how her like rehabilitation's going. Is she ready? I don't think it'll be a triple threat. If it is, I won't be mad at that. That'd be a nice little kind of edge to that match as well. I just think they'll go with that, and then maybe have Dakota cost someone for the win, and that's where she aligns herself like closely with someone. And I think it will be with Io, and we might start to get a Bayley going back to being a bit more of a baby face.
Because it's getting a bit awkward, that, because I figured they'd be feuding by now, Like if they do push it all the way till Mania, okay, yeah, fair dues, but wowzers, like I thought
Yeah.
I thought the writing was on the wall for that at Money in the Bank when she physically, figuratively, and literally climbed over her to get the belt. I honestly thought like the imagery there was right. Bailey is now going to go on on a long but slow campaign of destruction, but she hasn't. She's been a loyal friend, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's not what I would have done, but all right.
So then we move on. I think we're going to get Jimmy Uso versus Jey Uso.
Okay.
I'm not saying this is necessarily going to be the first time that these have met before.
Yeah.
I think this might even be the blow-off match, and it might be a third match, and it's kind of like the rubber match between them with some sort of stipulation. But no titles or anything. It'll just be like a blood feud, and maybe
don't need it.
Kind of reconcile at the end or something. But yeah, I certainly think this is where it's going to head. They'll get a nice big spot between them. And we might even get to see some sort of Rikishi sat like ringside would be cool. Doesn't have to get involved, just be, just sat ringside and looking concerned.
Yeah, I've been very, very, very keen on the older. I don't want to say old, bless him, but I don't want the previous generation of the Anoa'is not getting involved in this, because WWE always leans on the legends for stuff, and they don't need to in this storyline. This Bloodline story is good enough on its own without wheeling any of them guys out. It's fine if they're sat backstage or something, or you see them come out and put like one of their like rosary things around Roman Reigns. That's fine. But as soon as they start wrestling or getting involved, we just don't need it. Like Twitter exists; they can just do it there. You know what I mean. But yeah, it'd be cool to see him ringside.
Talking about things that would be really cool to see: Gunther versus Brock Lesnar for the IC title. For me, it's a dream match. It's one of those ones that I think is just kind of stuck there in terms of like people want to see it. I think WWE are very aware that people want to see this. Again, I'm just thinking like every match that Gunther seems to have had, and they seem to be making a big deal about him on Raw in terms of giving him plenty of time to do what he does best, which is inside the ring on Raws rather than on premium live events. The idea of Gunther pulling a great match out of Brock Lesnar, which we know Brock can have as long as he's invested, and I think he would be invested in this. Just the idea of these two guys going at it, I just think it would be absolutely cracking to see. The visuals of it would be amazing. But yeah, give me that all day. I wouldn't even mind in the opening match for night one to kick off the whole weekend, just to really get people like talking.
I'd like go. Oh, sorry, mate. Go on.
Or you put it on maybe like the opening night of night 2 to really kind of like boost the crowd like back into it again after, because I don't know if you felt it this year. It takes a little bit of time to get people going again on night 2.
Yeah, for me, I think the stuff that works early on is like the John Cena stuff, is the some of the smaller but like legendary babyface wins. For me, titles. I hate it when title matches are on early. I like it when we take care of some of the lighter stuff. But I think Gunther and Brock Lesnar deserve not to necessarily be on last, because either one of the women's matches will be on there, or then maybe the big gold belt or something like that. But I'd like to see the IC perhaps second last on one of those 2 days, because that's where it belongs. And then maybe have like one of the women's matches go second last on the other night. That is what I'd do. But I do really strongly believe that they need to stop putting Gunther's title defenses before a pay-per-view on Raw. I want to see them now at pay-per-view premium live events.
Well, sorry, 2 days after.
Yeah, but that to me isn't good enough. Like that Ciampa match, like I was really not a fan of. Like there was some good wrestling on there, but Fastlane just felt unfinished to me. I enjoyed it, but I watched it like it was an episode of Raw. It just didn't have the gravitas. Shinsuke versus Seth just wasn't enough for me. Gunther versus Ciampa for the IC would have given it that extra special sauce. And we're at the point now where Gunther is up there with Seth and Roman Reigns, as far as I'm concerned. And I feel like WWE don't feel like that. And if you want to get fans to see Gunther as a big deal, book his matches on pay-per-views. Every pay-per-view he defends, all the way up till now and until Mania. If he has to have a match on Raw, wicked, do it like he had with Bronson Reed this week. It was fun. I enjoyed it. That's the sort of thing I want to see on Raw. Two meaty men slapping meat. But when we have like the big storyline matches like Ciampa or any of the others, please WWE, let's have them on a pay-per-view because that's where they belong. And I know they're doing it to kind of like cut the fat from the PLEs, but they cut it too much on Fastlane. I think it was just too short, wasn't enough gravitas. Yeah, let's have, be it the IC of the United States, let's at least have one of them on there if Roman Reigns isn't going to be.
Well, that's fair enough. I am going to throw this in there, which I really do hope happens.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about these two. Yeah.
I think we get a call. There might even be another team thrown in there as well, like someone like the Viking Raiders, depending on how long they're on the shelf for injury wise. But I also will put that down.
There's Alpha Academy as well.
Yes, sorry, I did mean to put them in.
Because let's not they're a big feature on Raw at the moment. I imagine if there's any big ladder shenanigans or big tag shenanigans at Mania this year, a fully baby-faced Street Profits are on it. It was weird, because when I saw Street Profits at the house show, the crowd were really divided. The crowd really didn't know what they were, face or heel. And it was only at the end of the, like, they came out to booze. It was only at the end of the match were people cheering them because Chad Gable put in that match did such a plucky babyface performance.
Yeah.
So that's why. So I think like they are overwhelmingly faces now. And we need to see that at Mania, I think. I'd like them to get the win. Or maybe DIY.
Kevin Owens, I think, is going to have a match with Logan Paul.
Oh, yeah. I wish I thought of
that. I'm imagining the build to this being absolutely fantastic. Just Kevin Owens just really not wanting to deal with Logan Paul's crap and basically just being like, I will out wrestle you completely and I'll embarrass you because you were literally nothing more than loudmouth. Like they can kind of play into the you're a disgrace to boxing, like your opponents take a fall for you and stuff, and like really kind of like try and build around that angle of Logan Paul just going after Kevin Owens. And to be honest, I might even stick this down. I think it's for the US title match.
Could you imagine if Paul wins it? Could you imagine?
I honestly can. I really can. I think they'll give him, because last year, obviously, he went against Seth Rollins, and it was an entertaining match. I think sooner or later, they're going to let him have the US title. And it might even be the fact that he beats Rey Mysterio that he kind of called out at like Survivor Series or something. And maybe he holds it for that long and Kevin Owens gets it off of him at Mania, and maybe it's that way around.
This is the belt of Sting, of Ric Flair, and bloody Logan Paul. Like, I'm a fan of Logan Paul, like of his wrestling, not necessarily anything else he ever does. But even that makes me kind of cringe a bit. But anyway,
but it cringes, and that's what it's supposed to do, though. Like it's supposed to make you feel like it's dirty for him to have that belt.
It was like when Jericho had the Ring of Honor belt. I was like, get that off that sport entertainer now. It was like, but that's exactly what they wanted me to do.
Yeah.
Which is why it worked and why it was such good TV. And when Claudio beat him, it was such a momentous occasion because finally we rescued the belt from Jericho. So yeah, you're probably right. They could do the same thing there. It's a great effect.
I think it's going to be Sami Zayn versus Drew McIntyre. This is a bit of a strange one because it's slightly because I don't think either of them can be involved in some of the bigger matches, but I think there's a great story to be told where Drew is going to be kind of going full heel soon enough, and Sammy's going to be really built back into his like underdog of the underground, Sammy, where he's kind of like pushed down, and we started to see that on Monday, where he was lamenting the fact that Jay was back, but he was back because his best friend had been like traded off. I think he's going to get lost in himself for a little while, and then it will build into like Drew basically kind of like goading him because he was like, I told you, like it was bad news that Jay was here the whole time, and I just think it's like a good kind of clash of styles, a good clash of like it will be just like a proper heel versus face match, and I think you can pull both guys can have a great match as well.
I feel like this teasing with McIntyre though, like sorry, I feel like I'm poking holes in each of yours where you didn't do that to mine.
That's cool.
This McIntyre stuff, I don't know if they're going to swerve us with it. I don't know if it's too obvious. Like they're going, oh look, McIntyre's going to be a heel, and I don't know. I'm not convinced yet. I'm not, because I keep seeing like on streams and stuff, oh, McIntyre's a heel now, but then he does something really heroic. Like I know he's not saving people when they're getting beaten up, but he's still doing all the other babyface stuff. So I'm like, it's deliberate. I know that, but I'm still not fully down with him being a heel yet. I need more, I think, but maybe they'll give it
me. I'm going to go with, and this one is really not going to be your kind of thing. I think it's happening, unfortunately, for you. I know you're not like massively keen on this guy coming back, but I think it is written that CM Punk is going to come back to WWE, and they will get a match against Seth Rollins.
Let me just clarify why, if people don't mind, Andy, just to jump in. It's not that I'm an anti CM Punk guy, or always have been, or I'm one of these justice for the elite guys. It's not that. It's just I just want to make it clear. I cheered when CM Punk returned. I was upset when he went away after Brawl Out. I even defended him. I cheered when he returned and when the Elite returned, and then after All In and what transpired, and how it's been basically reported, and people who were punished and what they were punished for. I'm now of the view that if WWE bring him back, they are essentially condoning workplace violence in an era where it's just not sensible to do that. And I don't know if that's worth it. But this is your list, so that's just me. Sorry, you were saying before I jumped in with my...
No, I think it's, for me, it's the obvious match. I think Seth's called him out in the past in terms of like, actually, like, this isn't in any kind of storyline. I think he called him out because it's legitimately how he feels. But I also think Seth Rollins is a consummate professional who will do what is asked of him, and they know full well that these two going against each other is a big deal, and the only place for me that it can take place is WrestleMania.
I agree with that logic. I totally agree with that logic. I think the only thing they've got, I know this isn't the place to debate CM Punk's return, but I'm not convinced they're going to do it. I think they're looking at WWE right now. It's in a good place, and like he's a loose cannon. Bringing him in, does it? Like, there's every possibility it gets bums in seats and it improves the product for a bit because the guy's great in the ring and he's a big star, obviously. But then again, there's three things are certain in life. Death, taxes, and CM Punk will fall out for somebody, and that is that is their reason for not hiring him right now, and doing the whole like Survivor Series would have been perfect. So I personally believe they're not going to bring him back, and he's going to just disappear into the ether and do something else. But that's just me.
Well, it remains to be seen, and I think there'll be a lot of people watching Survivor Series just in case.
All right, I'll be watching.
I've put down. I completely agree with you. I honestly thought it would be that way this year for Rey Mysterio versus Dom Mysterio. I think they'll run it back, but it'll be hair versus mask, and I think this might be where we start to see a bit of a shift. And also, I think Ray's started to hint that he might be now as well.
That's what made me do it. His hint. Yeah.
This one's going to be an interesting one. I think as it's WrestleMania, we will see a celebrity, which will be Bad Bunny. And I think he will be with Damian Priest versus Finn Balor, JD Don't know.
See, I like that, but they have to get JD and they have to get Priest and Bad Bunny back together, because like I'm of the view that this is going with Priest secretly conspiring with JD Dunner to push Finn out of the way, because Finn is still a thorn in his side for the big gold belt, and ultimately that'll matter more. And Judgment Day. I love the idea of Judgment Day turning on Finn like it turned on Edge, and it also harkens back to the Bullet Club curse as well. Oh, wrong one.
Yeah,
where Bullet Club always creates a leader, follows that leader, and eventually turns on that leader and cannibalizes him when he doesn't achieve what they wanted him to achieve, or when he runs out of rope. I kind of like that happening to Finn again, history repeating itself like it did in Japan. But anyway, yeah, yours is a great way of getting Bad Bunny on the card, because I did consider Bad Bunny, but I didn't know where to put him.
Yeah. Well, again, it's going to be fun to look back on this when WrestleMania starts to take shape and see if we were anywhere near on any of these. We could be completely wrong, and every single one of these matches that we've gone between us is wrong. I'm going to go with maybe something that people wouldn't expect here. John Cena versus LA Knight.
Yeah.
I just have a feeling that like they'll leave John Cena's current tenure on SmackDown, where there's a bit of a sort of dangling thread where something happens. There's a bit of animosity between him and LA Knight, and then it's not tidied up until WrestleMania season. Which is a great way to get LA Knight on the card, but I just don't see LA Knight winning the title against Roman Reigns at Crown Jewel.
No, God no.
I just can't see it at all, which is such a shame. But unfortunately, that's where we are.
I wonder if, because you and I have discussed this before, I don't know if we discussed it with LA Knight, but there's an idea where Cena could not fully turn heel, because I don't actually think he should, but we should. Do you know how when he was calling out The Undertaker and he was becoming insufferable, he was coming out every week and he was getting more and more insecure, and his call outs were getting a little bit more venomous. They started out very, very respectful, but then they got a little bit more heated as he got a little bit more desperate, and it was the closest we've ever seen to a John Cena heel turn, and it was brilliant. And it made Undertaker's return after a year so much more special as well. And like I wanted to see Cena get his head kicked in because of how insufferable he had become, and it was really good TV. Now, could they do something similar because I thought that idea as well, and it would be a great way of like they did with Austin Theory. If Cena was to put over LA Knight, it'd be really good for LA Knight's career. Could they have Cena do almost this? I'm John Cena. I'm like a 16-time world champion. Who do you think you're talking to, LA Knight? Trust me, like your time hasn't come. But Cena thinking the crowd is on his side, and he's like, yeah, I'm going to do this. But really, what he doesn't realize is he's gone too far. He's got too arrogant. He's got too cocky, and his insecurity is now obvious to everybody but him. So he's not fully turned heel, but he's the heel in this feud. So when LA Knight beats him, Cena's like, that's when he realizes. And that's when he's like, wow, I was always destined to lose this, because it's your time now and not my time now. And I think that'd be like, John wouldn't squirt, like peel over his legacy. It'd still be a way for him to do his thing. We could see something he could have some fun with that as well, get a bit darker. And it might shut the people up who go, hey, you never said heel. Shut up. It might shut that, it might shut them up as well. I actually think that is such a bloody good idea. I can also see him flattening Grayson Waller at some point. But yeah, I do love the John Cena versus LA Knight idea, especially if they were to if this old man Cena thing they're doing at the moment, this Joe Biden Cena thing they're doing, could go into some kind of could darken, could twist into something a little bit more malevolent. That'd be cool. It'd be a great way of retiring him as well, actually, doing that.
The only thing I would say about that is because of his age, it'd be strange for LA Knight to be the one that they retires John Cena.
Yeah.
I feel like if you're going to do it, you want it to be someone like a Bron Breakker or to be a Carmelo Hayes to really kind of like push them on to the next level. I just don't really see what LA Knight gains from that in the long run. But similar, I didn't really understand the Corbin beating Kurt Angle in his retirement match.
Nobody did. That was awful. Like that. No. This. Let's not compare this to that. Let's please not. This is actually good booking, and I think like even though he's a little bit older than the average, I get your point. I still think the rub from John Cena is good for LA Knight. Like LA Knight might not be the future, but he's certainly the present, and that might be enough. So maybe that's where Cena realizes, look, it's not over yet, but it's coming. And maybe a year or two down the line is where it comes. But this could be Cena finally acknowledging, you know what? Never mind Hollywood. There's a clock on me now. There's a timer on me now, guys. And LA Knight showed me that.
And to be fair, he's been starting to say that in interviews as well, where he said like he even said like the biggest eye opener is that he feels like he's got work to do and he's behind where he would want to be, which kind of plays into that sort of old man Logan sort of thing where you're on the end of your kind of career and you know which way it's going to go. Just
good storytelling. Sorry, you were saying.
I was going to say, just to finish my card out, I think we might see the Andre the Giant move back onto WrestleMania.
Please, just put it on the pre-show. It's all I ask, Andy. Why don't they just have a pre-show, right? Have a pre-show. We used to have a nice 205 live match on there. Do you remember when we got Buddy Murphy versus what's his name? He's the athletic dude in AEW now. But like that was great. That was a great moment. And then we got the Battle Royale on both nights. Give us a decent pre-show again, WWE, and stick the goddamn Battle Royales on it.
I mean, I don't think I'd necessarily mind if they featured the women's one quite heavily on the SmackDown. I just think the Andre the Giant one, it's a bit of a disgrace to have his name on something that's now been relegated to SmackDown. It feels a bit awkward. And also, there's no reason why this can't be a big thing. I remember the WrestleMania, was it 34 in New Orleans, where they made, was it the big thing there with Bray Wyatt and Matt Hardy? Was that year?
Yeah. Oh, yes, it was. And Bray came out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It was on the pre-show, wasn't it? Or was it at the start of the show?
I think it was actually on the show. I might be wrong, but that it felt like there was actually storylines throughout it. And again, there's a chance to do that because there's people I haven't got on there. There's people, that say like Sheamus isn't on there. The Braun and Brutes aren't on there. But even on the women's side, I haven't got Charlotte on there. So there are people that are like quite big that aren't on the card. And it's not to say they don't deserve a place. It's just in my booking, I think there's better stories to be told. So
I have the same problem. I have the exact same problem with mine. You know, there's people I've left out but if you look at every WrestleMania card, there are always people left out. But you're right, the Andre, it's like the Royal Rumble. What's so good about the Royal Rumble isn't the returns and isn't stuff like that. What's the best Royal Rumbles are the ones that set up future storylines. Stoke the flame of existing ones or remind us of old ones. So, for example, Mickey James and Trish Stratus coming face to face again, and then Mickey just doing a bit of a manic smile before the two of them start beating everybody up. AJ and Finn Balor being in the ring for the first time, acknowledging their Bullet Club heritage, too sweeting, and then carrying on what even though that's a New Japan thing, they still, I think, or was it no? I think AJ did that with the Good Brothers. It was still a nice little moment. And then you've got things, for example, where you like Goldberg getting rid of Brock Lesnar, and that was the final straw for Brock. And he was like, "Right, you and me, Mania. Like, this has been hanging over me for 10 years now, Goldberg." That was a brilliant story. I know people laugh at Goldberg these days, but let's not forget at Mania 32, that Brock Goldberg storyline was fire. It was great. My point is, because I'm rambling, but my point is they could do that with the Andre the Giant Battle Royal, and they always fritter it. Apart from with that Brock, that Bray and Matt Hardy thing, that was great. But they could. It also needs to be worth. There needs to be a tangible prize. booking related, not just the ugly statue of the beloved Andre. And I'm sorry, Andre, you were a beautiful man, but that statue does not do you any justice, mate. It just does not. It looks like a big anyway. Have winning that battle royal give you something after Mania, definitely after Mania. So we've got, oh yeah, so and so won that. I wonder what they're going to do with that the prize. Maybe they get a title shot or something, or
we'll just put it straight into they get a backlash match. Like it's fairly straightforward. You don't have to. It doesn't have to be this big thing. It can just be a case of he won the Andre the Giant Battle Royale, so he gets a title shot at Backlash.
Because exactly. And what do we always have around Backlash time, or just after it? Usually, we have the post WrestleMania slump. We get it every year. I don't know if it's fan fatigue, especially with people like us who jump on planes to go and watch this stuff because we're insane. But we do always get a post Mania slump. It's worse in some years than it is on other years, but that'd be a great way to keep us interested after Mania. It'd give us something to think about once you're in the bar after Mania, breaking it all down or drowning our sorrows, I believe, as we were.
Or even maybe if they do want to make it a slightly more complicated booking, then maybe they get a guaranteed entry into Money in the Bank.
Oh yes, or something. Yeah, just something to hang the hats on, because no one cares.
Otherwise, what you get is a photo next to the big trophy with your arms folded. Cool.
Yeah, meh. Okay.
Yeah, but it's there. You can make
20 other guys for that. Okay.
So we're going to wrap it up there because our cards are set. I will save this and we will refer back to it probably March next year when we're in a position where we know most of the card.
Yeah.
And even then, we might have to say there was something thrown in at WrestleMania because they tend to do those sort of things at the moment. But really interested to hear. What do you think of Sam's card? What do you think of my card? What do you think? What do you think is going to happen at WrestleMania next year? Do you think we're a million miles away? Are we close on some? Are there some there that actually you hadn't thought about but would be really cool to see? Do you think Nick Aldis, is this leading to an actual wrestling match for him? Things like that. So plenty to discuss in the future. Plenty to look forward to as well, which is a massive thing. But let's see if we can kind of turn some of these green in the future when it is booked or not. But really interested to see how it goes, and it's been really fun to kind of fantasy book WrestleMania 6 months out.
I was well enthusiastic when you told me that this is what we're doing tonight. I was, oh my god, I'm going to book it now. I'm going to do it now.
I know. To be honest, originally I was going to get Scott on and just let you and Scott kind of discuss yours, and then I'll be the judge of whose I thought I would rather see. Kind of glad because I hate doing those things where I have to judge, because I know we did the draft, which we'll probably do again when it happens. That was good fun as well.
Oh, that was funny because Diva Dom came out. That was great. We got some proper vintage Diva Dom from that.
I know, and I clicked it. It's still one of the most viewed on the channel.
Yeah, him just yelling at me. I'm like, yeah, okay. What are you doing?
But as I said, so this is going to be the last stream for a few weeks. I will be back. I'm away on holiday for a few weeks or 2 weeks, but the way it falls, I'm traveling on the next Friday, so I'll spare you the details. But I am going to Disney World, so I'll be going hopefully and getting some sun and ride some roller coasters, and I've got a couple of runs while there. So check out my other channel, which is Roller Coaster of Running, and all that good content. If you want to see me as a sort of average Joe Smo, just doing his thing and running some runs and getting some good footage while I'm out there, would really appreciate you giving me a subscribe. Give me a subscribe on here. Sam, where can people find you? What should people be tuning in for in about 1 hour's time?
Oh God, yeah, it's nearly that time again, isn't it? So yes, join us on the Give Me a Hall podcast tonight. We'll be streaming SmackDown and Logan Paul calling out Rey Mysterio tonight. So exciting times. Io Sky versus Charlotte, about bloody time. Getting that tonight, but again, come and hang out with us. We won't be streaming the whole show. It'll just be us and the community chatting about it. So have it on in the background, join us, and There's always lots of funny banter and some wacky things happen sometimes, like a few weeks ago. But yeah, there won't be a podcast next week at the SmackDown show unless one of the boys covers me. I don't know because I'm in Coventry from the Friday night. So I'll be drunk in a bar rather than doing SmackDown. Happy days. And I don't know about the next week because we'll be covering Crown Jewel. So I might just struggle, do SmackDown and then do Crown Jewel about 12 hours later. We'll see how it goes. But maybe not. We'll see what happens. But yeah, also WrestleSphere, as Andy said at the start of the thing, go check out WrestleSphere, where we will soon be having up the chat with Will Ospreay. We've got a ton of other interviews on there. Andy's done a bunch. I've done a bunch. Dom's done a bunch. A few special guests have done a bunch. That's our baby at the moment. That's what I'll be representing on next week on Saturday night in Coventry. Yeah, really looking forward to it. And if you want to read some gaming content, go and check out what I do on Deserto as well.
Great. I mean, so many fingers and so many pies.
I know, yeah.
West Ham. But yeah, really appreciate
paydays. I can't afford just one job. Sorry, go on.
Well, I know that feeling. But thank you very much for joining me, Sam. It's been fantastic. As I say, I'm going to go squirrel this sheet away and then unleash it next March and see how close we are. We might even get a couple of our friends within the wrestling media to predict it this far out, and I'll add it on as well. And then we'll pick their brains. But go have a break from Wrestling Royalty for a few weeks and make sure you come back when we're bigger than ever, because thank you very much to everyone who has subscribed, by the way, because this was the week we hit 100 subscribers. We are 10% of the way there. We will get ourselves to that magic 1,000 at some point, but it means an awful lot to me for each and every one of those 100 subscribers. Thank you very much. It's great having these chats with you, and I really enjoy people coming on and commenting. So if you're watching this in the future, let me know, because I will be revisiting any comments that are on the video. I always do. But for now, he's been Sam, I've been Andy, and this has been Wrestling Royalty.